Mitikai Orisi, and happy March, almost April 2023. I was going to offer you New Year's greetings, but it's a bit late for that, so I offer you an opportunity. The knowledge of this golden opportunity we all have to make the world a better place. Many of us are struggling to fill this void within, a gnawing void, and I'm here to tell you how to do that with meaning and purpose and true justice. But first, we have to set our priorities straight. First, we must find our bearings in 2023. Because let's face it, we're just as much in need of finding those bearings today as we were back on January 1st when we hung that new calendar upon the wall. Just as much in need of finding it as at any point within this still new millennium. And why? Because we're facing a pitched political war in this nation. At least that's how it's been characterized, yes? Left versus right, Democrat versus Republican, conservative versus liberal. But these terms and the concepts they embody, they've changed so dramatically throughout the years. In 1860, if you stood for equality and justice, you were Republican, because the Republican Party stood for equality of all men. They were staunchly against bigotry, against slavery, and the Democrats championed bigotry, championed slavery, championed inequality. And after the Civil War, they were particularly nasty. Members of the Democrat Party founded the Ku Klux Klan. The party stood for a very lopsided segregation in our schools, in our workplaces, at our water fountains, even dictated which sides of the sidewalk we were supposed to occupy. By 1970, what has become known as the Great Switch, the Great Handoff, had occurred. Now, the details of this are for future exploration, but for now know this: if you stood for equality and justice in 1970 and most likely marched for it, you were Democrat. Somewhere along the way, Democrats came to champion equality of all men and women, and they embraced liberalism, the very noble, unquenchable ideal that no one deserved to hand up or push down because of the skin color or culture. Republicans, unfortunately, well, by this time, members of the Republican Party were leading the Klan. And they led the push. The party led the push for segregation in our schools, in our neighborhoods. The party championed business interests over clean and safe living. And, well, today, well, you choose which party best represents your ideals of equality and justice, which best represents truth. Because today, classic liberalism has much more in common with conservative Republicans than progressive Democrats. Democrats favor a censorship, a silencing, heavy-handed guidance, most typically employed through seems like an endless series of laws and regulations and fines. They seem to have lost their faith that the average Joe and Jane can actually render compassionate and rational decisions. Republicans, well, maybe they have too much faith in the common citizen. As for the Klan, no party wants to be associated with the Klan. As always, they are led by absolute idiots. So you see, much has changed. Yet, fundamentally, much remains the same. Truth remains capital T, truth. And the people, the combatants in this conflict, have spread these issues, their issues, past our borders. So today, this is truly an international conflagration. If you want to stand for truth and justice and equality, political ideology, political affiliation is no longer enough. And here's a newsflash for you. Some things are good and will always be good. Some things are bad and have always been bad. Truth is truth. Take slavery, for example. Historical apologists would have you believe that long before we were born, and our parents and grandparents, that people embraced and practiced slavery because it was just the times. What a repugnant argument. It is just as abhorrent to torture an individual today as it was back in 1863 or 1492. And the compassion that often serves as counterweight to that, just as valid today as at any point within human history. So yes, we need a term and a concept that eternal, immutable, never changing, that defines us every second, so that we can stand for it and march for it and fight for equality and justice and truth. We need a term and a concept that will stand against the passages of time and political capriciousness. So this is not a political war. This is not even cultural war. This is spiritual warfare, a battle for hearts and souls, because good and right are eternal and must always prevail. Spirituality is the conviction that comes from this knowledge that at its core humanity is good. Spirituality is a devotion to bettering humanity day by day, hour by hour, and you start right here. You develop the good within yourself so that it grows and the light glows, and people around us are invited to bask in the warmth of that glow and develop some good of their own till it truly becomes a national, even global phenomenon. Spirituality is a never-ending quest because we can never stop bettering ourselves. The knowledge of that is thrilling. A never-ending quest where we keep getting better. Forever. Thrilling. To do this, we need moral absolutes. To do this, we need an unerring moral compass. To do this, we need a reason to have these absolutes. Somebody recently reminded me that knowing why is more important than knowing how. I've learned throughout my years that to achieve full spiritual development, and thus that of the world, we need to have a profound connection to the divine. Now, many of us don't have that, and some don't even believe such a connection is possible. More is the pity. I admit we can go far without it, but never far enough. We'll always come up short, where we will always limit ourselves. So what is right and what is just? It shouldn't surprise you to learn at this point that I have some ideas on the subject. The first thing I told you was Mitikayo Asin. Now that's a Lakota phrase. It means, well, the Lakota are an American Indian nation. And the phrase means all my relations. Family. It means we're all family. Me and you and the many who are not you. Everybody, everywhere, every when. Family. Even those with whom we most strenuously disagree. And we bear an awesome responsibility to family. To serve and protect. But fundamentally, foundationally, to serve. Too many believe that serving and protecting means to shield and protect from the truth. And will even go so far as to tell lies to shield from the truth. Now this may bring a fraction of an instant of comfort, but what it does, truly, it fosters dependence. Because those we are shielding will need us to keep shielding, to keep lying to them. We'll need everybody around them, everybody in the world to keep lying to them. It fosters weakness. That's not morally defensible. Our moral obligation is to build people up, to build up our family, to strengthen our family and our loved ones and our communities, to get them ready for whatever life will throw at them. This is spirituality. This is what we need do. You see, if we allow anger to take root within us, we're not being compassionate to ourselves. If we use that anger to strike out at others, we're not being compassionate to them. And if we teach others to let anger and fear take root within them, because the fear leads to the anger. We're afraid of what might happen. We're afraid of what did happen. We get angry about that. Without the fear, there's no reason to be angry. Without the fear, there's contentment, and I dare say, happiness. So if we teach people to allow fear and anger to take root within them, we're not being compassionate to the world. We teach Black Americans to be angry and afraid. We teach transsexuals and anybody that even has the merest thought that they may be transsexual to be very afraid and angry. Muslims, Latinos, Asians, etc. Be afraid and angry. And if you're white, well shoot, if you're white, be angry and afraid and ashamed. We teach that anybody who draws breath upon this earth, who inhales oxygen and exhales carbon dioxide, be angry and afraid. If you need heat or coolness to survive, be angry and afraid. If you need to use fuel to work and compete and food to eat, be angry and afraid. If you need to find a peaceful balance within this climate, which we all inhabit, be afraid and be angry. And we teach that those people who use words, can you imagine the audacity of using words to express themselves? Not your words, never your words. The words of those people over there. We teach that we must be fearful and hateful of those people most of all. And yes, I said hateful, because I am talking about truth, and in the spirit of honesty. We're not just teaching to be angry, we're teaching to be enraged. And who are we? Why, anyone that promulgates such reductive, dismissive, vile, ungodly falsehoods as dogmatic truth. There is no more pernicious lie, no more base falsehood. And we say that they must respond to these forces that are beyond their control. People causing situations and events beyond their reach. So we say, respond with the force of your own. A force that is illegitimate and brutal and hard and harms and can even maim and kill. So much for truth. So much for compassion. If we encounter somebody who is suffering, we make a connection, yes? We sympathize. And it was within our experience we empathize. But if we then go beyond that and say that the cause of your suffering are people causing events and situations beyond your reach without even investigating to see if this potent claim is true, where's the compassion? That's not the proper response. Let's say you go to the doctor. Something's ailing you, and the doctor feels your pain. You can see the concern all over the doctor's face. But then the doctor walks to the window and says, I can't help you. The cause of your pain is that fella down there on the sidewalk and that gal over there in the corner. Those people in the waiting room. They cause your pain. I can't help you. What good is this doctor? Not only does she allow your pain to continue, and it will worsen, she encourages you to be angry, to be enraged at people who most likely had nothing to do with it, and allows her own skills to deteriorate, her critical thinking skills, her medical skills. They wither and they waste. Finally, let's say that you and I have an argument. It's a conflict of ideas, and it starts out genteel. We respect each other's innate dignity, but somewhere along the way, an invisible switch is thrown. An unspoken communication, and what started out as a respectful conflict of ideas degenerates into a profane personal attack, two attacks, from each other, toward each other. Now, we bore responsibility for keeping this conversation respectful. And we are to blame when we abrogate that responsibility and it spirals down a rabbit hole. And then let's say I strike you. It could be a punch, a hit, a push, a kick, doesn't matter. I'm damn well to blame for taking that action. You see, you said something, you called me an idiot or a fool or somebody that I admire, an idiot or a fool, something like that. And I found your words so repulsive that I felt that I had no recourse but to strike you. I am to blame for that. We've all heard that some people deserve to be punched. Legally, you would call this fighting words. But that doesn't mean that physical violence is inevitable. That was my choice. So I chose, and I am to blame for that, just as you chose those words, and you are to blame for that. But now the ball's back in your court. How do you respond? You can choose to calm me down, to calm us both down. You can choose to escalate the physicality. All along the way, responsibility and blame. Responsibility to keep things respectful and genteel. And blame when we abandon that responsibility. And it's not only that we hurt each other, we hurt ourselves, because we all know people who get stuck in a moment. They allow the words and the gestures and the emotionality of others to penetrate and to linger and to rot until it consumes the pain, the humiliation, the anger. Consume. Dare say we've all been there. So in this situation, you and I are consumed. In this situation, you and I have allowed ourselves to be consumed. We've allowed ourselves to be triggered by the emotionality and the words and the gestures of the other. So just like the doctor who refused to heal, no one gets any better. We all worsen. Recently, I had somebody yell at me on the sidewalk out here. He yelled at the top of his voice. He was livid, and the entire neighborhood could hear him. He called me an idiot. And immediately I laughed, because I know I'm not an idiot. I looked around like, somebody else here? He tried to convince me that I'm somebody that I'm not. That's amusing. I could have been angry. I could have been humiliated. I could have been afraid. But instead, I laughed. I've trained myself to have this be my go-to reaction. So now it is as natural as breathing air. I used to be the guy that allowed the slings and arrows of outrageous words and gestures and emotionality to penetrate and linger and rot. And I caused myself endless periods of grief. And everyone around me fell victim to my foul moods. I'm not that person anymore, and I guarantee you I'm demonstrably better for it. So you see, truth is compassion. And you can't be fully compassionate without fully telling the truth. There are those who believe that they should tell others to be angry and afraid. They tell others to be diminished and reduced and somehow insecure because of people and events that are not them. What an absurd notion. That's not compassionate. And that is not capital T truth. The truth is that we are morally obligated to build people up, to find the strength within, to help them unearth the strength within, because it gets buried by the static of life. Unearth that strength. Unearth the capacity for resiliency and self-worth. We all have it. Sadly, for many of us, it is laying dormant. But it's just waiting for you and me to come along and to reignite that spark. Because when we reignite that spark, the light shines for all. And I understand that for most of us, our concept of the world doesn't extend beyond our family and our loved ones and our communities. And that's fine, because we're still shining our light for everyone that we can. This is the essence of compassion. To seek and speak truth always. To always seek and speak truth. Now there are those who don't want you to do this. And if you defy them and you actually not only seek it, but find truth, they certainly don't want you to speak it. They are invested in keeping you down, keeping you manipulated, keeping you lied to. This is the golden opportunity I spoke of. This is the opportunity to shine the light. Every time that they lie, we countermand that with the truth. Now, it's a comparative few that are leading this charge of manipulation, and they will be held accountable. And we have to speak truth when they speak untruths. But the vast majority are being manipulated. They are being lied to. The void that I'm speaking of, the manipulators are filling that void with filth. So now's the time to set our priorities straight. Now's the time to get our bearings, to get our moral and spiritual bearings. This is not the time for personal attacks against them. This is the time to extend the hand of friendship. This is the time to lead and to guide and to instruct and to listen and to go forward, hand in hand, arm in arm. That's truth. That's compassion. That's power. That's legitimate power. And it's eternal. And this, my friends, is the key. This is the answer we've all been searching for. So, our responsibility is clear. First and foremost, to be good to ourselves. To be honest to ourselves. Because if we're honest to ourselves, we are good to ourselves. And if we're good to ourselves, it naturally follows that we'll be good to everyone. The world can and will become a better place. So, go out to the rest of the day, shine your light upon it. Shine your light upon everyone you meet. And then tomorrow, get up and do it again. Peace. 4 fingers.